When the police brought him before the courts, the 40 women who were victims of his assaults were not happy with his sentence. They took matters into their own hands, banded together against him, and stabbed him 70 times. Here are 7 cases of criminals who were murdered in courtrooms. Number 7. Klaus Grabowski. On May 5, 1980, Anne and her mother, Marion B.M., had a huge argument. The disagreement was so intense that Anne skipped school that day. Without Marion knowing, that would be the last time she saw her beloved daughter, marking a heartbreaking moment of unexpected farewell. On June 3, 1950, Marion B.M. was born in a village near Hildesheim in West Germany. When she was just 16 years old, she became pregnant not once, but twice. She had to make a very difficult decision and ended up giving her babies up for adoption. In 1972, she became pregnant again, and this time she kept the baby. On November 14, 1974, that is the day Anna came into this world. However, life was not exactly a walk in the park for Marion and Anna. They were always on the move, going from one place to another. One of their places was Lop. Marion had to work many jobs to make ends meet, but no matter what, the bond between mother and daughter remained strong, even when things got tough. One day, young Anna was kidnapped and murdered by Klaus KSK. This guy was a real scumbag. He had already been in prison before for hurting children. To make matters worse, he actually lived right next door to Marion and LCK in West Germany. A total nightmare situation, if you ask me. Anna, who had once visited his house to play with his cats, went back there again. Klaus grabbed Anna and kept her locked up in his house for a while. But things took a really dark turn when he strangled Anna with a pair of pantyhose and dumped her body near a canal in a cardboard box. It was sick and twisted. Klaus Kowski was arrested for committing these atrocious acts. The evidence left no room for doubt and led to his swift arrest. As the case unfolded, Kobau's lawyers presented a confusing defense, arguing that their client was dealing with significant hormonal issues, which led him to make disturbing decisions. In an even stranger twist, it was claimed that Kowski had even undergone a procedure to excise his intimate parts, supposedly taking special medicine for it. On March 6, 1981, things got even crazier. Marion burst into the courtroom with a small pistol in her hand. She pointed it at Kowski's back and fired 7 times, killing him instantly. Witnesses said Marion was furious and even insulted him. She wanted to shoot him in the face but settled for shooting him in the back, hoping he wouldn't survive. People all over Germany were shocked, and everyone was talking about the case. Marion ended up on trial for taking justice into her own hands. When she was in court, she claimed she didn't remember what had happened. But the way she handled the gun made people question her story. So they brought in a doctor to verify if she was telling the truth. They asked her to write something on paper. And guess what she wrote? "I did it for you, Anna," along with 7 little hearts. These hearts could have symbolized the 7 years Anna lived and the 7 shots Marion fired at Grabowski. It turns out Marion was found guilty of planning the murder of Grabowski. She was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but was released early, serving only half her sentence. People started calling her the avenging mother of Germany. It was crazy, right? On September 17, 1996, Marion sadly lost her battle with pancreatic cancer at the age of 46. She was buried next to her daughter Anna in a peaceful place called Berta Cemetery in LCK. Number 6. Seal Angelo. On April 18, 2014, a trial was taking place in the new federal court in downtown Salt Lake City, and the first person to be tried was Seal Angelo. Angelo appeared before the judge without knowing that these would be his last minutes of life. Born on May 22, 1988, Ciao Maveni Angelo lived in the picturesque city of Salt Lake City, Utah, in the United States. Angelo was part of a gang called the Towin Crip Gang, or TSG. He was known as C. Crown and had been involved in criminal activities since he was a teenager. He had a criminal record that included store robberies and participation in a chase where he shot at U.S. Marshals, resulting in his arrest. He had already been sentenced to up to 15 years in prison before this trial. On April 18, 2014, with the trial starting in the early hours, Judge Campbell decided that Angelo should not be shackled or restrained in front of the jury because there were no curtains to cover the tables. When the trial began, the first witness started speaking, and things got tense. Some of the security officers did not know that Angelo would not be restrained. They were in for a big surprise when Angelo, a 25-year-old gang member, suddenly stood up, grabbed a pen and pencil, and fiercely lunged at a witness who was speaking about his gang. One of the security officers reacted very quickly and fatally shot Angelo 4 times as he tried to leap onto the witness stand. The officer then approached him and told him to drop the pen, but Angelo did not respond. Angelo was rushed to the hospital for treatment, where he later passed away. After the shooting, Judge Campbell expressed regret for not restraining Angelo, but did not expect something like this to happen. The security officer who shot Angelo said he had to do it to protect the witness. He did not personally know Angelo, but knew that his gang had a very violent reputation. Angelo's family was very upset and sued the security officer for wrongful death. 3 months later, the US Department of Justice said that the security officer actually did the right thing. Initially, the Department of Justice wanted to keep the video of the incident secret because they were concerned about gang retaliation, but after a lengthy legal battle, they finally released the video to the public. It turned out that the video played an important role in proving that Angelo's family was wrong in their lawsuit. They claimed that the officer used excessive force, but the court disagreed. They watched the video, and District Judge John Dowell said that the officer's actions were entirely reasonable given the situation. While Angelo's fellow gang members were sentenced to between 10 and 30 years, Angelo's trial was cancelled due to the shooting, and it was declared a mistrial. Once the video was released, people began debating whether the police used too much force. Some thought the officer could have handled things differently, but others believed that the officer did what he had to do to protect himself from a real and immediate threat. The whole situation sparked a lot of controversy and debate about how the police use force. Number 5. Slobodan Praljak. On November 29, 2017, Slobodan Praljak, who was 72 years old, was accused of being a war criminal in Bosnia and Croatia. He was told that he had to spend 20 years in prison, and he was not happy about it at all. Right there in the courtroom, Praljak refused to accept the verdict and decided to end his life in front of live television. Slobodan Praljak was born on January 2, 1941, in Capljina, Yugoslavia. He had 3 university degrees and was not only book smart, he also had serious leadership skills. When those Yugoslav wars occurred in the 90s, he stepped up significantly. He joined the Croatian army and even rose to the rank of Major General. Bad things happened while he was in command. The UN claimed that he knew about soldiers doing terrible things to Muslims, but did not do much to stop them. He also turned a blind eye to assassination plans, attacks on international groups, and even the destruction of a historic bridge and mosques in Mostar. In 2017, the UN War Crimes Tribunal sentenced Praljak to 20 years in prison for his crimes against humanity. He was one of 6 leaders facing this tribunal. And then, something unimaginable happened. The judge stopped the trial, and doctors rushed to help him, but unfortunately, Praljak died on the way to the hospital. The Prime Minister of Croatia was very angry about what had happened and said it was not fair to the people of Croatia. In Mostar, people lit candles and prayed for Praljak. Praljak's lawyer believed that the tribunal was not treating him fairly. She thought that her client saw himself as innocent and felt that the tribunal was judging not just him, but also the political history of his entire nation. Number 4. Michael Marin. In 2009, Michael Marin executed a wild trick to evade his mortgage payments. The court quickly found out and charged him, imposing a hefty sentence of 7 to 21 years. Overwhelmed by the grim verdict, he secretly decided to end his life, marking a tragic end to a day of reckoning. Michael Marin, born on September 2, 1958, in Harbor, Washington, was a man of faith and intellect. His journey took him from Brigham Young University to Japan as part of his religious service. In 1987, he became a certified lawyer at Yale Law School. Despite his successful career at major banks like Lehman Brothers, his life took a dark turn in 2009. Facing insurmountable mortgage payments, Marin set fire to his mansion, hoping to escape the financial burden. His elaborate escape plan, which included a rope ladder, did not convince the fire investigators. Facing a severe sentence similar to second-degree murder, Marin's desperation grew. While Marin was in the courtroom, the weight of his actions fell upon him. The evidence was stacked against him, painting a clear picture of arson, and the charges he faced gained great importance. Upon hearing the guilty verdict, a chilling silence enveloped the courtroom. With a quick and secretive movement, Marin put something in his mouth and swallowed it with a sip of water. Moments later, his body convulsed before collapsing to the ground. The deadly grip of cyanide, a poison he had ingested, claimed his life before he could reach the hospital. Subsequent investigations uncovered a can of cyanide in his car and an email to his son showing his intent to end his life in the event of an unfavorable verdict. The end of Michael Marin left many in shock and sadness. His desperate act and a long prison sentence culminated in a heartbreaking end. The events left a lingering question. Could the desperation and fear that enveloped Marin have been alleviated, possibly rewriting the tragic end of his story? Number 3. Nathaniel Richmond. On August 21, 2017, in the early hours of the morning, Nathaniel Richmond had a plan. He saw a judge named Joseph Bruzzese Jr. walking toward the courthouse in Steubenville, Ohio. Richmond had a gun and started shooting at the judge. Malik Richmond, who was Nathaniel Richmond's son, had committed a serious crime against a classmate. The whole problem started with a photo of him and his friend carrying the girl that went viral on social media. The next thing you know, Malik ends up in court and has to face trial on serious charges. His father intervenes, wanting to take the blame for his son. In a grave turn of events, he loses control and attempts to kill the judge. This action leads to fatal consequences for him. In August 2017, as the judge approached the courthouse entrance, Nathaniel was there waiting for him with murderous intentions. He pulled out his gun and ruthlessly shot the judge 3 times. Despite the injuries, the judge tried to get up, but Richmond shot again. The judge, however, fought back, pulling out his own weapon and shooting Richmond. Richmond tried to flee but could not escape because another officer appeared and started shooting at him. Richmond found himself unable to continue and later died at the scene from his fatal wounds. There is a video of the entire incident, but it took 3 years for it to be made public. Although Judge Bruzzese was shot in the stomach, he remained standing and walked across the street. More officers soon arrived, followed by an ambulance to assist. Judge Bruzzese underwent surgery and eventually recovered enough to return to his job. In 2018, Malik Richmond made news again. After spending 9 months in a juvenile center, he returned to high school that same month. He was preparing for his first college football game, but some were not happy about it. A petition was started to oppose his participation in the game. The university took notice and decided that he would not play that season, but he still remained part of the football team. Number 2. Akku Yadav. In the 1990s, the streets of Kasturba Nagar, near Nagpur, India, were often haunted by a man known as Akku Yadav. In 1991, a horrific gang rape was just the beginning. Yadav and his gang terrorized hundreds of families, wreaking havoc on men and even children. They beat, tortured, mutilated, and killed people. They even broke into homes, stole money, and seized properties. Yadav was said to be responsible for over 40 women being raped. Some of them were minors. Their crimes were so disturbing that they became legends in their locality. Despite all the violence, Yadav seemed untouchable. The Nagpur police locked him up about 14 times, but he had connections, bribed people, and had a corrupt network that kept him free. Many victims told the authorities what had happened, only to be ignored. A 22-year-old woman reported an assault, but the police accused her of having an affair with Yadav and dismissed her. But every dictatorship comes to an end. On August 13, 2004, justice finally arrived, albeit in a way no one expected. When Yadav entered the courtroom for his trial, a woman appeared and began beating him with a sandal. She gave him a chilling ultimatum. Either she would kill him or he would kill her. And so, a crowd of over 200 women stormed into the courtroom, armed with stones, chili powder, and knives, seeking vengeance against the monster who had tormented them for years. In about 15 minutes, Yadav was stabbed 70 times, leaving the choice clear. It was reported that a woman cut off, Aku Yadav was dead. After everything calmed down, people showed great care and encouragement towards the women. During an interview with a woman whom Yadav had mistreated, she reported that he once stole a watch from her house. She confronted him about the incident, and he yelled at her for accusing him of theft and ended up torturing her along with her husband. Number 1. David Paradiso. On March 5, 2009, David Paradiso was in the middle of his murder trial when he suddenly lost control. The courtroom was shocked when Paradiso went crazy and tried to attack the judge with a hidden weapon. Born in 1981, David Paradiso didn't exactly take the right path in life. This guy had a long list of run-ins with the law, starting with vandalism and issues related to drugs and alcohol. When David was just 21 years old, he was arrested for driving under the influence. A few years later, he tried to escape from the police but ended up being convicted of evading law enforcement. The following year wasn't any better for him. He was found guilty of aggravated assault on a corrections officer. In 2006, things took a darker turn. David was arrested for serious crimes, murder and kidnapping. The victim was his 20-year-old girlfriend from Auburn. He stabbed her to death in the back seat of his mother's car while they were driving down an alley. After the stabbing, David forced the driver to head to Amador County to dispose of the body. David's lawyer had been trying to argue that David was high on methamphetamine when all this happened. March 4, 2009 was the day of his trial, and it was on this day that he met his downfall when he tried to attack the judge. Just before this happened, Paradiso's mother seemed very upset and left the room. Judge Fox called for a recess, and as the jurors were leaving, Paradiso walked quickly to meet her and threw several punches at her face and body. In immediate action, he quickly pulled out a knife and stabbed her in the arms. The deputies quickly rushed to help her, and Detective Eric Bradley, without hesitation, acted quickly, pulling out a gun and shooting Paradiso 3 times to stop the attack. Fortunately, Judge Fox had an advantage with the wound on her arm and was able to be taken out of the courthouse on a stretcher. She even reassured the reporters by saying, "I'm fine," before being taken to the hospital for treatment. The courthouse was closed for security reasons after the incident. There were many questions, and people were left to grapple with their emotions. Paradiso's mother was extremely angry. She had warned authorities about her son's violent tendencies and mentioned that he had a weapon. Why wasn't he properly searched that same day? She was very upset and described what happened. He tried to stab the judge, he stabbed her, and then they shot him in the head and killed him. David's brother agreed with their mother. They had informed the authorities about David's mental health issues. He said, "It's finally done." What do you think about the balance between enforcing the law and preserving the sanctity of life?